righty.
All right, guys. All right, guys. Well, I'll get started. So, welcome to Recess Beta Launch. We are super excited to just share, what we've been working on the last year. I mean, most of you guys would have got some information, have an idea of what we've been doing. You may know me, you may know Matt, you may know Lisan. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're just going to give you a little background on what we're working with. We will just show you guys a little more on the science behind Recess. And we would also show you all a little sneak peek into the product and the technology that we've been building and that we're super passionate about, right? All right, so my name is Kels Bethel, CEO and co-founder of Recess. For me, I started in the tech entrepreneurship space about 14 years ago. And the reason that I got into Recess is pretty simple. I have a background in psychology, and over the years in being an entrepreneur, I've noticed that for myself, my productivity went up, it went down, and I had like ebbs and flows in productivity. And what I realized for myself and for colleagues is that for us, entrepreneurs, and for us who we call ourselves like doers, like us who do things and are interested in changing the world, or we might be, managers, we may be people who creatives. We have a similar set of things that we face. Some of it might be procrastination, perfectionism, imposter syndrome. And I've noticed that for us, we speak about a lot of achievements, but we don't speak about the underbelly of performance. We don't speak about different things that we face. We don't speak about how can we actually overcome our moods to be able to perform more optimally. And this is kind of what last year in the pandemic, I started to deep dive into this. And this is kind of what started the thought process around Recess. And I just started to research, bought books, started to get into it. And then I started to talk to Lisan because I met Lisan in 2017 in Web Summit in Lisbon. She also had a background in neuroscience and psychology, and she had a similar interest. And she actually is a software engineer now. So I thought that should be a great addition to the team. And also Matt, just scouring the internet, having different conversations. Matt and I connected in a group, actually, in a group talking about psychology and talking about all of this. And all three of us, we just meshed because all of us have this similar passion to make something scalable and to really make a difference. And this is what led us to really start to work on Recess last year. But I will just let Lisan, you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I'm Lisan. I'm originally from Holland, and I moved to Portugal a few years ago. My background is in neuroscience, as Kelly said, and that's how I got very excited about Recess when Kelly pitched the idea to me. And after neuroscience, I went into software development. So that's most of my professional career. I've worked as a software developer. And it's just really awesome right now to combine like my two passions into one. And I like making an impact. So this has been really interesting.
Thanks, Liz. All right. And Matt, you could jump in and introduce yourself and let the people get to know you more.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Swartz. I'm the head of community engagement and the technical advisor at Recess. I'm the guy with really trying to spearhead the bilateral portion of this. So I'm a mental health superhero. I've got my normal day job. Half of my time I'm a therapist, and then at night I go out, I fight crime, and I'm a business consultant, and I work with everything from Fortune 100 companies all the way down to small, medium-sized businesses on things like individual development, team development, customer relations, effective hiring, all about the people stuff, and using specific frameworks, but super passionate about helping people to diminish their stress and increase their fulfillment. And by building healthy individuals, healthy companies, we can transform the world, right? So for me, that all starts with effective individual change. And that's where bilateral stimulation comes in. For me, I've been in and out of therapy my entire life, starting in second grade for ADHD. And it wasn't until I discovered bilateral stimulation about 4 years ago that I feel like things really, really began to change for me in my brain and in my nervous system. And so saw it changing my life, saw it changing my clients' lives as I begin to roll it out, and then just wanting to scale it. Ended up in a conversation with Kels and met Lisanne, and here we are taking that technology and hopefully improving your lives. So really glad everybody's here.
Thanks, Matt. All right, so maybe in the comments, you guys, we already started this, but for those who haven't, just introduce yourself in the comments. Let us know where you're from, why you're interested in recess, your name, and let's get to know each other. And all right, so for us, for recess, we spent about, how long did we spend, guys? About 4 weeks sort of thinking about what we really want to do with recess, right? For all of us, for all three of us, we really want to help empower people. We have this mission and mandate. We've all been, focused on achievement in different areas of our lives, but we realized that we wanted to do something that was purposeful, meaningful, and also scalable. So our vision behind recess is to empower people everywhere. And the everywhere is really about scale. We want to, Matt is a therapist and a coach, and he meets with people every day. But what we want to do is use technology so everybody everywhere could have access to a state of flow, right? And so that they could better and meaningfully impact the world. And our mission is simple. We want to digitize the technology of bilateral stimulation to increase performance and mental fitness at scale. And it's really simple. We're taking something that is used one-on-one with therapists, with clinicians, and what we want to do is digitize that. And that's really our mission. And our values, our main 4 values are freedom, growth, openness, and community. And for community is the biggest part, I think, for us, as you could tell with how we're building recess. We really want to have this conversation more. We really want to talk about the underbelly of certain things. We really want to talk about what we really need to do to be our best selves, and not only about metrics and achievement, but building a community around having a more balanced conversation. And immediately, when we look at the mental health space in terms of technology, automatically people think about Headspace, they think about Calm, think about Talkspace, and they have different applications like Yupa. And I just want to do a quick snapshot, but the biggest thing and the biggest difference between recess and what we're doing is that we're focusing on performance enhancement. We are also digitizing, a therapeutic, not just like meditation. We're using a lot of AI emotion tracking as well to help with the recommendations into the type of sessions that you should be doing. And for us, the main thing, as we keep talking about, is scalability. We want more people to have access to this sort of technology at home, even though it cannot replace therapy and those one-on-one sessions. We really want a solution that could start to move the needle along to be able to touch more people. And for us, it's pretty simple. As I said, we want to increase performance, improve mood, reduce anxiety, but we want to do it cheaper and more scalable, right? And that's what recess is about, and that's our value proposition. So for tonight's session, pretty simple. We have 5 main things that we'll be doing today. We'll have Matt, who will be going more into flow state, finding flow. He'll be talking about the science of motivation and productivity. Then we'll have Lisanne coming in. She will be doing the bit of an understanding behind the technology of recess. We will have a demo for you guys so y'all could see kind of like where we're at with the beta, and also we'll get the other understanding of where we would be with the first version of the application, because this beta that you guys will be testing out wouldn't be the first version of the product. And then we'll let y'all know what we're looking to do with our early access community and what expectations we would have of you as a beta tester. And any other questions, we'd also answer that, right? So we're going to jump straight in with Matt. You could get started.
All right, excited. So I'm going to do my best to fit a presentation. I usually take about 45 an hour into about 20 minutes, so you guys, I hope to whet your palates here in terms of flow. I'm not going to be able to explain every single little in and out, but I'm going to do my best to give you guys the high levels. For me, finding flow is all about the science of that bridges the gap between emotion, motivation, and productivity. How can I get where I want to go, but also feel good doing it? So goals for today in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to teach you what is flow, what are the components of it, how do we break it down and manipulate variables so that we can maintain flow or get into flow more easily. So how do we get there and stay there? And then how do we use it for our benefit? So for us at Recess, the way we look at flow, and there's lots of really cool research on flow dating back even to the 70s. One of the famous guys' names is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he just often doesn't get talked about because it's impossible to pronounce his name. But what we've done, what I've done in my work and what we've done as a Recess is try to distill this down to its bare bone elements. So we call them the 5 factors of flow. I'm obsessed with alliteration, and we're bringing it down into 5 Ps. So I'll do them quickly, and then we'll go into one each at a time. So let's start with presence, which is all about awareness and focus, how I'm engaged in my conscious experience. Peace, how am I managing and mitigating stress and safety? Purpose, do I have a sense of achievement and passion in what I'm doing? Potential, do I feel capable and worthy of doing what I'm doing? And play, does what I'm doing include a sense of curiosity and wonder and joy? All 5 of these factors are essential for flow. So if we want to build flow, we have to know a little bit about each of these and figure out how to get into them. Yep. So, Kels, did we miss the one of the flow slides? Yeah, there we go. So I just want to define flow state for you guys. So flow state is, also known as being in the zone. It's the mental state in which a person is fully immersed in the feelings of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment in the process of the activity. So flow state is not banging your head against the wall in order to get somewhere. If you've hit a wall, you're out of flow. Think of flow like water flowing down a mountain. Right? It's going to find the cuts and the grooves that are the path of least resistance. If it comes to a rock, it's going to go around. It's not going to go through. And so, I think as entrepreneurs, high achievers, creatives, we tend to try to get through the rock because that's what a bunch of people like Tony Robbins told us to do. And flow state really calls that methodology into question. And it says that's really not how you get where you want to go. Flow is all about matching skill with challenge. Right? So we get into the flow when we're doing something that challenges and provokes us, but we're also really skilled at. And there's a lot of other terms I won't go through here. As that challenge level decreases or the skill level decreases, we might end up in some other places like arousal or anxiety or control or apathy. And we really want to be in that flow category if we're doing good work. Thanks, Kels. So now let's talk about bilateral stimulation, right? So you guys have probably heard this a couple times, bilateral stimulation. So let me explain what it is. So bilateral stimulation is activating both sides of your body intermittently, alternating, that also activates your brain in particular ways. So Kels, can we skip to the next slide? Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool benefits that occur from bilateral stimulation. Number one, it's going to naturally enhance activity in the prefrontal cortex. If you guys are at all brain nerdy, that's kind of like the seat of our consciousness. That's the driver and controller of the brain. It's also going to decrease overactivation in our limbic system and our hindbrain, which by releasing stress and trauma, which is the areas that mitigate emotion and fight or flight. Well, I'll explain that a little later. But it also streamlines communication between the neocortex, which is like our primate brain, and our limbic system, which is our reptile emotional brain. So we can integrate logic and emotion. So instead of making a decision logically or making it emotionally, we can use both and bring that together. Bilateral stimulation is really helpful for doing that. Fundamentally, how, right? So that's the what of bilateral stimulation. The how is by increasing very specific neuroplastic processes. Neuroplastic or neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to shift and change. And we do that a couple of ways. First, neurogenesis. Bilateral stimulation actually increases your brain's ability to produce new neurons. Then second is neural pruning, which is the ability for your brain to select neurons and areas it doesn't need anymore and kind of chuck them out. And then the third process is called neural consolidation or integration, which is helping the brain to make novel connections, right? So there's a lot of ways to get into bilateral stimulation. One targeted way is doing the kind of therapy I do called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. But again, that's not accessible to most people. It can cost a lot of money. So we're hoping to bring that into the Recess app. Now, we're not going to do deep dive trauma work through Recess, but we're going to help focus on improving flow state, right? But there's also a lot of easy ways to promote bilateral stimulation. Anytime you walk, left, right, left, right. There's also tapping techniques. One's called the butterfly hug, where you can use your hands on your shoulders. Alternatively, it affects your vagus nerve. Even reading, scanning a page back and forth, right? But most primarily, the way in which we go through this bilateral stimulation is while we sleep. When we enter the REM sleep stage, our entire body is frozen and paralyzed, but our eyes are moving back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that's correlated with all these neuroplastic processes that are happening in the brain. So I always try to get people to think of it this way. 100 years ago, we were walking on average, most people, 4 hours a day. These days, less than a half an hour. So sleep, right? We're not sleeping as well as we used to. Let's be honest about that. So there are these natural healing and growth mechanisms that come standard in this, human hardware that we're not harnessing and we're not utilizing effectively. So I know I'm not going to get you out into the world and have you walk 5 hours a day. So instead, what can I do to help supplement that, right? And that's where the Recess app comes in. Yeah. So Laura asked real quickly. So basically, we do several versions of bilateral stimulation, but not in an effective manner. Yeah. So if you're not sleeping healthily, your brain isn't effectively processing. If you're not walking enough, your brain isn't effectively processing. Some of you might be walk and talkers. I am, like, if I'm on the phone, honestly, right now, I'd prefer to be walking, but that walk and talk tendency, that's your brain and body's, it's your nervous system naturally wanting to move so that you can more easily integrate information. They've done studies that show that people who walk when they talk remember more information than people who stay still. Fascinating. So the breakdown, on the brain, right? I was talking a little bit about this. I break it down into 4 main areas. Now, listen, the brain is much more complex than 4 main areas, but this is a really good way of understanding what's going on a high level. So we're going to start on the right side with the gray area called the hindbrain. This is where fight or flight, body regulation, survival, safety, and stress are stored. When this part of your brain isn't working well, you're in fight or flight, you've got anxiety. But when it is working really well, that part of your brain is what helps us to attain a sense of peace. Peace is the absence of all of these, yucky built up pain things, right? Then in that green area, it's called your limbic system. This is where emotions, feelings, memories, reactions, capability, and self-worth are stored. When it's working really well, this is the part of your brain that gives you that sense of potential. When it's working really poorly, this is the part of your brain that causes you to have big negative emotional reactions, anger, sadness, fear, right? Then the red part's called your neocortex. This is where your thoughts, your beliefs, your expectations, your habits, this is where achievement and passion are contained. When it's working really well, this is the part of your brain that figures out what's unique about me, what's my purpose, and how can I impact the world. But when it's not, this is the part of your brain that keeps you stuck in old habits, old beliefs, old patterns. And then the crowning achievement of the human brain, right? That blue area, it's called the prefrontal cortex. This is the driver's seat of the brain. This is where your awareness, your focus, your imagination, your choice, and creation are contained. This is the part of your brain that, when well regulated, create presence and peace. Okay, so here's the good news. We come standard with this equipment. Here's the bad news. Most of us aren't using it efficiently. The software we're running isn't efficient. Number one, studies show we spend less than 10% with the of our day with the prefrontal cortex working at sufficient capacity. And number two is, if we have emotional injuries that cause overactivity in the gray, the green, or the red regions, they take the higher order regions offline. So for instance, somebody who has anxiety, your gray brain, you've got some emotional injuries in that area. It's going to diminish the effectiveness of the green, red, blue. If we have a big emotional reaction out of the green part of your brain, we're going to diminish the effectiveness of the red and the blue. And even if the red part of our brain's active, which is the old scripts, the old patterns, that's going to diminish the prefrontal cortex. So we're not going to be able to create a new reality. We're just operating based on past patterns. So my job is to help you. It's not about destroying any parts of these brain. It's about getting them all interconnected and all interacting in the best way, shape, and form possible. And that's what flow is all about. So each of the different modules in Recess is going to help you target a specific area of the brain that's going to help you come into flow more easily. Keep moving. So let's talk one by one. I'm going to get in a little detail. I have about 10 minutes, so maybe 2 minutes apiece. So presence, it's all about awareness and focus, right? What's awareness? Let's talk about that real quickly. So mindfulness, right? Most of you have heard of mindfulness, is a great explanation of how awareness works, how our conscious experience works. Basically, mindfulness says there are 3 stages to our conscious experience. Everything we experience while we're alive falls into one or multiple of these 3 stages. First stage is perception, taking in sensory information with our senses, both inside and outside our body, what we see, hear, taste, touch, feel in our stomach, right? Then second is interpretation. How do I filter that information based on past experience? Think of interpretation like a lens, right? And if I have data stored in, the gray, the green, the red, the blue portions of the brain, that lens is going to become gray, green, red, or blue, and then it's going to create gray, green, red, blue interpretation on the other side, which then leads to the third area, which is response, right? How I act or how I respond to that information. Most people come to me because they want to change their responses, but what they don't understand is that it will be really difficult to change their responses unless they change how they're interpreting or how they're perceiving the world, right? So that's why we really stress awareness. That's why meditation is more helpful. It can help us really solidify the bedrock of that perception, especially stage, but also the interpretation stage. So in addition to that awareness, and again, I could go on and on, we also know that as high achievers, as performers and entrepreneurs, we care about focus, right? So I can actually break that down as somebody who's been dealing with ADHD for a long period of time. Kels, if we can. Perfect. There's actually like 3 different components to how we process information. So first is your attention. What are you paying attention to in your environment? And so think of this like a cone, right? If I have 10 TV, if I walk into a room and there's 10 TVs, which TV am I paying attention to? The one on the left, the one on the right, the one in the middle? Where am I paying attention? Am I paying attention to the computer in front of me or the activity in the other room, right? Next is focus. Okay. How much stimuli are you attending to? Are you paying attention to 1 TV or 3 TVs or all the TVs? Right? Sometimes it's good to pay attention to just 1 TV if you want information. Other times, like go out into nature, you just want to open that cone. You want to let it come in, right? And then finally is concentration. The question is how long or how deeply are you attending? So even if I'm focused on just one of those TVs, if I'm constantly bouncing back and forth, I'm not going to get sufficient information. But if I can hold my attention on 1 TV at a time, now I'm going to be able to download information. So for those of us who are trying to accomplish goals, attention, focus, and concentration are all things that we're going to have to work on. Again, I can spend hours explaining that to you, but just high level, those are important things that can be improved by working on presence, awareness, and focus using that part of the Recess app. We're going to improve those factors. And there's lots of other ways to do it too, but I'm here tonight pitching the Recess app. So second, right, presence, peace, safety, and stress. So I'm gonna go quicker on this, Kel. So I may skip a couple slides, but go ahead in. So ultimately, right, we want to feel peaceful. Why are we trying to build a company? Well, we want to be able to relax sooner or later, right? So I want to teach a high level how this works. This is one of my inventions called the nervous system scale. It's basically how our body responds to stress and change physiologically. The idea is we start on the left. We get new information. Initially, we're aroused by that information, interested, right? We might hear a sound or smell a smell or something, right? Arousal turns into stress when there's too much information coming in for me to process. So again, if I end up with a bunch of TVs yelling at me, I can't process it all at once. It starts to feel painful, right? That's stress. And as that stress adds up, gets to a particular threshold, as I said, that becomes pain. Now, we can tolerate a certain amount of pain. But think of it like if I was holding a stick, I could bend that stick a certain amount, But then if I bend it too much, snap, right, it becomes an injury. Same like a bone, right? So when we stress out our nervous system too much and we put it in too much pain, then it can become an emotional injury. That emotional injury is something that prevents us from meeting a need. In the same way, if you broke your leg, it would prevent you from getting up and getting food from the kitchen, right? So an emotional injury may prevent us from attaining peace or safety or potential or purpose, right? So we want to be able to heal those emotional injuries. If we don't, those emotional injuries become fear in order to protect us from continuing to be injured. But then anxiety, we start getting afraid of the fear, anything that makes us feel that similar discomfort. And then if it continues piling up, it becomes trauma, which is essentially too much information for your brain to process. So I help people intervene on any level from stress on up. The goal of recess is to help us decrease the stress so it doesn't create an injury in the first place, right? Recess isn't necessarily going to be able to heal those injuries. That's where like deeper trauma work or therapeutic work comes in. Go ahead and move forward, Kels. So a good way to sort of a map to navigate this is something called the window of tolerance. The idea is we have this particular optimal state, right? Look at that green area in the middle where we can reason and we can be emotionally engaged and mentally engaged, right? Now, as those emotional injuries pile up in our life, our window of tolerance will actually shrink, right? And then what happens is when we get stressed, initially we get kicked up most of the time into what's called hyper or over arousal, right? And over arousal is fight or flight, right? It's fight, flight. And a lot of people end up ping-ponging back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Eventually, your nervous system is going to get exhausted and it's going to kick you down to the lower level into hypo or under arousal. This is depression, lethargic, numb, shut down, right? And this is the freeze response. So the goal is if we notice ourselves continuing to get into the fight or flight or the freeze responses, we need to grow that window of tolerance. And we can do that by healing our nervous system over time. Keep going, Kels. So how does that window of tolerance shrink? Well, it's all about how pain adds up throughout our lives, right? So genetics define the possibilities, not the certainties, right? So think of genetics like a cookbook. There's a bunch of different recipes in that cookbook, and what gets cooked is determined by the chef. Think of life experience like the chef, right? So my life experience is going to determine which recipes in that book gets cooked. For example, we got tons of cookbooks. My wife doesn't like pork that much. We don't cook a lot of pork recipes, right? So it starts with early childhood. Those early childhood patterns and experiences that most of us have with our parents or caregivers are going to set the tone, again, either enhancing or diminishing the activity in those different regions of the brain: gray, green, red, blue. The more they're enhanced, the stronger we become. The more they're delayed or diminished, the more deficiency. So a lot of us experience emotional injuries in our early development, which then harm us going forward in the ability to use our brain and our bodies effectively. Well, then on top of that, you add trauma, right? Really difficult negative experiences. You lose a parent, you witness a tragic accident, something really bad happens. This is going to injure our nervous system. Then next on top of that are repeated negative events, right? If you go to work one day and your boss chews you out, it's no big deal. If you go to work every day and your boss chews you out for a year and a half, that's going to impact your nervous system. And then finally, on top of that, we have daily stress, right? So most people with all of these negative life events, that by the time they go to add the daily stress, it overflows. So how do we empty out that cup and allow more room and more area for that daily stress to fill up without exploding? I think we're going to skip the next slide, Kels. Yeah, skip it. Skip it. So there's 4 levels that we can engage with distress and pain. There's distracting, where we numb it out. There's coping, where we use tools to manage it. There's healing, where we actually empty out some of that junk from our nervous system. And there's evolving, where we've learned the skills and techniques and adopted the internal software to prevent that stuff from clinging on in the first place. And so recess's goal is not just to help with coping, but to actually help with healing. So it's a little bit of coping, but a little more healing. And then maybe even some evolving by helping us prevent the distress from getting lodged in our brain and our bodies in the first place. Okay, so 2 more left here. So well, three, but we're not going to get super deep into play. So purpose, right, is all about achievement and passion. So the achievement is, do I have past, experiences that show that I can do this thing, right? Am I a good guitar player or a bad guitar player? And then passion is, do I care about this thing? Why are we here, outside of normal working hours doing this presentation? Well, because we have purpose, right? Recess feels purposeful for us. It's something we know about, we all have experience, but it's also something we're passionate about. And so some of the things that, may help you in your individual life or in your company's life, with understanding these purposes, you can break it down into values. What do I care about? Vision, where am I trying to go? And mission, how am I getting there? And all of those are essential components to think about on an individual basis, as well as a collective one. And so it was just a side note, it was such a cool experience, walking the three of us, Kels, Lisanne, and myself, through our own individual visions, missions, and purpose, vision, mission, and values, and then coming together to create the company vision, mission, and values based on that. So then second to last is potential, right? Do I feel capable and worthy? So often in our culture, we're trained to take capability again from like our past experiences. But then the challenge is, what if you're trying to do something new, right? Well, then I can't do it and I shouldn't do it and I shouldn't even try. So that's not going to work, right? If any of you are familiar with Mindset by Carol Dweck talks about having a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. Somebody with a fixed mindset says it's all about performance level, right? Somebody with a growth mindset says I actually have to fail in order to get better, right? And so then we want to begin to pull our worth, not from just our capability or our past achievements, but from something deeper, right? How do we find a sense of worth that is immutable, that it's not dependent on external variables? How do we find a sense of worth that's rooted in our life or life itself, right? I often think in my therapeutic work about our little child self in fear. Essentially our self-esteem, our self-worth is how damaged is your nervous system. People who feel crummy about themselves have damaged nervous systems. People who feel good about themselves have healthy nervous systems, right? And so a lot of us have to go back and help our little child self to heal so that we can move forward. And on the other side, it's not just about inherent worth and value. It's also about what I'll call radical acceptance, which is how do we say yes to the current reality in front of us in order to actually work with it? If I have a ball of clay, I have to say yes to the fact that it's a ball before I can turn it into something. I have to say yes to the empty canvas before I can turn it into something. So again, to have a growth mindset, it means moving into pain for healing and growth, not just the pain of external experience, but also the pain trapped in our bodies that is preventing us from getting to the next level, learning the new thing, and becoming more of what we could be. So Alora is asking, so with bilateral stimulation, we're able to heal these parts of ourselves. Yes, but it depends how deep you go. So Recess is going to use bilateral stimulation to help you heal the stuff that's on the surface, right? So the stuff maybe from your past week or your past month or in your current reality, it's probably going to require something deeper to get into the deep stuff. But for most of us, even if we can, improve the top 20%, that can be huge, right? And then that can activate us on how we want to go into the deeper journey. Thanks, Alora. Great question. So I think we can move forward, Kels. So finally, the last component is play, right? Play is all about curiosity and joy. Am I genuinely interested in discovering something more? Does it bring me joy and passion? If not, you're not going to get into flow. I was saying, was on a call for Tech Beach women's mental health with Kels yesterday. And the whole, you're not going to get flow from a spreadsheet, right? If it doesn't bring you joy, if it doesn't bring you some sort of activation, we're not going to be in flow. Now, you got to do the spreadsheet, right? But in order to do the spreadsheet, how does the spreadsheet connect to something that's meaningful to you, that interests you, that brings you joy, right? So sadly, Recess isn't going to be super helpful with play, but it will be very helpful with the first four: presence, purpose, potential, and peace. We got a module on each. So very excited to share this with you guys. More than happy to talk more about it in detail at a further time. But for now, just want to kind of wet your palates and help you understand what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Thanks, Matt, for explaining this so well. I've studied neuroscience, but it's great to have like a new understanding or a repeat of like what I used to know, and it's all coming back to me. So thank you. Yeah, I'll show you guys a little bit about what we've been working on in terms of the app itself. So what you guys will be testing is a beta version of our app, which only currently has the virtual reality world. There's a bigger app that we're still building, which has a lot more functionality, but we wanted to just start out with this and get your feedback. And yeah, so I'll show you a little bit about this. So, I mean, I think most of you will know what virtual reality is. It brings you into like a computer generated like world where you can, it feels real. You can look around, you can sometimes even walk around. And this is what we're using for Recess because it's very immersive, and for it to work, like the bilateral stimulation, it's good to have little distraction, and with VR, we can fully control what you see and how it works. And another reason why we used it is because we wanted to really keep everything within one app. We don't want you to have to switch to some type of projection on your wall, or because we thought of a lot of options, but we wanted to keep everything simple and within reach of just one app on your phone. So yeah, Matt explained very well what bilateral stimulation is. And within our app, we're using this in the form of a ball that goes from left to right. And at the same time, you will hear a sound in either ear, taking turns. And this is what we use as bilateral stimulation. So it will be visual and it will be auditory. And currently we only have VR implemented. However, we want to also build on augmented reality, which is slightly less immersive, but it will, I mean, maybe some of you are familiar with it, but it will project the little ball in your actual living room or wherever you are at the moment. It might be more convenient if you're not at home, for example. And so we will be working on this after we finish the beta phase. So part of our bigger app that we're still working on will be a little bit of artificial intelligence, where we will actually be tracking your emotions, and we'll be tracking your journey in time. And you'll do this by keeping a diary if you wish. And the artificial intelligence will extract your emotions, and we will be recommending you the sessions that work best for you in terms of your current emotions and goals you want to achieve, and things that you feel like are not working right now in your life. Yeah. So this is like a little summary. We hope that this will be super useful for everyone, and that it will be very accessible, because you can do it anytime, anywhere on your phone. And yeah, we're combining everything so that you can actually track your day-to-day life, your day-to-day emotions, and see how you're progressing and actually improve your performance.
Lisanne, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I realize that we in this, we're not mentioning the goal tracking part that we also intend to integrate.
Okay, sorry, yeah. So we're tracking emotions. We're also tracking goals. You can set goals that you want to achieve either for the day or for later on in the week or next month. And you can work towards them. You can pick the purpose session, and you can focus on one goal and keep track of how you feel like you're doing, how achievable the goal seems to you. And yeah, you can check off tasks as well. You'll see a lot of graphs of your emotions versus your goal performance and everything. I hope that explains that well. That's a quick preview, but I'll show you an actual demo of what it looks like currently. So let me share my screen quickly.
Yeah, let me stop sharing and you go ahead, Liz.
Yep. All right, so this is what it will look like. You can look around, you can enjoy the surroundings, you can, feel comfortable and relaxed, hopefully, before you get into a session. So let me pick the peace one. So let's say you want to start working, you want to feel a little bit more peaceful today. And first you'll get a question, how relaxed do you currently feel? Maybe you're feeling not too bad, but you still need some improvement. So you pick 6. And that's when you can start the actual session. You'll have a little menu appear where you can change the settings of the ball. You can change the color, the size, the speed to your own preference. Let me just leave it on default. And once you start a session, you'll get some instructions before the ball will start moving.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry. So I'm seeing that you're selecting the options, right?
Yeah.
The VR headset, how do we select the options? Do we have to use our fingers to select it before it actually starts like this?
That's a good question. No, actually the little red dot you see in the center of the screen, that's like the focus of, that's like the button. So once you focus on one of the options and hold still for a few seconds, like because you cannot hear audio right now, but when you have audio in, it will actually make a click noise and you will progress.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Good
amazing.
question.
Okay, thanks for answering.
No problem. So this is what it will look like. This is the bilateral stimulation where you keep track of the ball. You're hearing sounds at the same time that we cannot currently hear. And yeah, you'll be reminded as well every minute or so to keep track of your intention for this session. And this is how you complete the bilateral stimulation. So I'll go out of this demo now. Can you put back the presentation, Kelly?
So if I can, Rebecca just asked, she didn't ask a question, she made a comment, but it's worth picking up. If you do the bilateral stimulation and it makes you sleepy, that means you need to go to sleep. Because the bilateral stimulation is giving you the messaging from your nervous system on what you need to calm down and regulate. So a lot of people actually use this technology to go to sleep because they can't diminish their nervous system otherwise. So they may use eye scanning or tapping in order to deactivate and go to sleep. And then I always say to somebody, if you're meditating and it makes you fall asleep, then you need to sleep. So just trust your nervous system. It knows what it needs to do.
That's a very good point. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. I'll show you as well a little bit of what the rest of the app will look like once we finish the first version. You'll have a home screen where you'll be able to see your last your emotions, your journal that you filled in. We will have a little bit of instructions going on for you to remind you how things work and to help you with your sessions as well. Part of the journaling will be thinking about things that you're grateful for, setting intentions for the day. These will be the goals that you can work on for your purpose session, and you can score here how capable you feel of completing your goals, which will help you towards your session and which will help the AI to recommend you the correct sessions to actually do. And you'll have a journey screen where you can see like your emotions over time, the amount of goals you've completed, and how you've been feeling. And we'll explain before sessions how things work. So this is not a one-time presentation. We'll explain again. And if you need to review at any time, we can explain. The app will explain you how things work. And here you can pick any of the sessions that you would like to do, and that will bring you into the VR world. So this is a quick overview. It's not complete. I've left some screens out, but this is just a quick feel of what the app will look like and what you'll get access to after the beta testing. Just checking if there's any questions. The AI-driven app will not be separate from the VR app. We're collecting your scores. We're constantly inputting this into our artificial intelligence to calculate what you should be working on or what you can be working on, and if your emotions and performance are improving or not.
And also from what Kyra asked as well, Kyra, for the beta version, though we only have the VR aspect of the application, the AI would be in the first version of the application. So for this beta, we would essentially have just the VR environment. You would log in and you'd be able to choose one of the sessions, the AI and the journaling and the goal setting and emotion tracking. That would be for the first version of the app. And as a beta tester, you would have that for free for 6 months as well when we do launch with the first version.
Thanks, Kelly. I'll stop sharing. And
so there is a set. I'd be happy to, because I have a fairly nice headset. So ignore the Google branding. So typical headsets look like this. Do not buy one without a strap. If you buy a headset without a strap, you will regret it, because you will be sitting there trying to hold up the headset, and it will be not functional for this purpose. The headset will have a opening in the front where you open it up, and this one has a remote inside it. Not everyone does. And then you can see the glass as you put the phone here with the screen facing towards you. You close and attach the flap. You put your eyes in here, and then you'll see it going from 2 screens into 1 screen, and it will be a fully immersive VR environment inside. Looks like this from the outside.
I saw Laura asked do us beta testers get one like yours? No, Laura. Thank you for your support, but to be a beta tester, you'd have to get one of these cardboards. If you want to purchase like a really good one that Matt has, that would actually be better for you. If you really want to get into this technology, it would be more comfortable. It would be a better quality experience. But these are just $9, guys, on Amazon. When we do launch for the first version of the application, though, these would be included in the subscription, right? But since you guys are supporting us and here for the ride, you guys could purchase one of these just $9 on Amazon. All right, let me share my screen and continue. All right, so that just brings us to the next steps for everyone here. So what we're going to do next is that if you are interested in becoming a beta tester, you have until just the 10th of September. So following this session, what we would do is we will send out an email with a disclaimer, and you just agree to participate. If you are an Android user, we will send you an APK. So you have to agree to participate, right? And after that, we will send you an APK if you are an Android user. If you are an iOS user, we will send you an invite via test flight, because we're not going live as yet. And everyone, we just asking that you commit 10 to 15 minutes a day of a session, right? Because what we really want to do with the beta test, guys, is that we really want to get your feedback in terms of if it helped you. We want to understand what was your improvements daily, if you found yourself more peaceful, more purposeful, if you find yourself increasing in flow daily. So you want to be able to measure that, and to measure that, we want to make recess a daily habit, right? So just commit 10 to 15 minutes a day using recess. You have to have one of these VR headsets to participate. Eventually, when we do have the AR, you wouldn't necessarily need it, but for now you would need one. And as I said, it's just $9 on Amazon to get one of this. If anybody, I have some few extras. So if anybody, needs one and they really don't have the cash to get one, you could also just email us and we could see if we could get one to you. But these are $9 on Amazon. Or if you want to like, you know, be really cool and you want to invest in a really good one like Matt, you could also invest in a good one to be comfortable as well.
They're honestly not that expensive. They're like $30 for a slightly nicer one. I mean, you can get
Right.
really expensive ones for hundreds, but you know, the one I have, I think costs like $39.99.
So that may even be a better option than these $9 ones if you think about it as well.
Yeah, up to you.
Yeah. And also what we'll be doing is we'll be sending you via email a weekly survey. And that what we're really asking is to give us feedback in terms of what could be improved, to tell us, you know, what are some things that we could do differently, also to tell us like how your experience has been. So we'd be sending you a weekly survey to the end of the week and you'd give us some feedback because we really need it. And also at the end of the 30-day period, we want to do a post interview with everybody just to have that one-on-one conversation to understand a little more about the experience, so that when we are crafting, because right now we're working on the first version of the application with the AI and the motion tracking. So what we want to do is take all this feedback from the beta and make sure that we put it in within the application so that we are ready to launch the best version of the application for the first version of the application. So we will have that 30-minute post interview as well after the 30-day period. So this beta test, guys, would be 30 days. So we're asking that you just do 10 minutes for 30 days and that's it. And essentially for us, what we really want to build is, as we know, one of our biggest values is about community. So we want to just build a community around these conversations. And what we want to give you guys, we want to give you guys 6 months of recess for free. And this is not now, you'll have access to use the beta version. But when we do launch with the first version, you would have 6 months free to use, unlimited. We also, with Matt, you know, Matt is like a valuable resource, guys. So what we really want to do is we want to have mastermind sessions, just having different conversations in different areas, because we really want to have a conversation about growth and flow, and just for us to improve our lives, right? So we'll be having mastermind sessions, we'll be having exclusive offers for Recess, but also with partners. We also have a podcast that Matt and I started to work on. So we want to, you know, some of you guys who are doing different businesses and stuff, it would be great to have you all as guests as well on the podcast. We'll have newsletter with exclusive content as well. And definitely being a beta, being part of our early access community, you'll be the first to be updated with things and how they're going and everything like that. Right? And any questions? So you guys could, yeah, you could take off your mics and ask questions, and we just open up the floor to anyone who has any more questions. And yeah, I'll just close off the presentation by saying that, you know, Recess is really about getting into a daily flow state in just 10 minutes a day.
I have a question. Good day.
Hey.
Hi, I'm Chris.
Hey, Chris.
So I'm a medical student, and I've been researching flow and flow state and all of that stuff from probably, I guess, 2018.
Cool.
I really like the concept. I've never heard of bilateral stimulation. I know of the theological override from Andrew Huberman, because I follow up on him a lot.
Yep.
The question I want to ask, so like, does it matter what time of the day or how long before we actually do what we're supposed to do? Like, for example, my goal is to study and stay in flow state for like 4 hours, 5 hours. How long before do I need to do the 10 minutes?
Yeah, Chris. So it's actually really, unfortunately, a super complicated question. It has more to do with the state of your nervous system overall than it does time of day. So if you're dealing with like a really stressful situation, you know, that's not going to be the optimal time, right? What you're going to find is that your brain actually makes you process through that stress before you're able to get into the motivation or the productivity. So the 10 minutes a day is just the floor, you know, it's just the lowest common denominator. You know, we're, with the app, our goal is to help people spend, I think what's the limit we put on it, Kelly, is it was no more than an hour a day, but in chunks of 10 to 20 minutes at a time. So, one of the processes would be if you've engaged in say you pick the motivation one and, you're feeling a little better, but not all the way. And based on your answers to how much better you're feeling, the app's going to encourage you to do another session. So, but again, there's a lot of different intricacies, how tired you are, how hungry you are, right? I mean, obviously flow state is maybe not obvious. That's unfair to say. Flow state will be best promoted based on the overall health of your nervous system. And so when I talk about something like safety, I'm approaching safety from a neurobiological angle, and safety actually means, have you also met your physiological needs? If you haven't had a good sleep, if you haven't had a good food, if you haven't, moved around a little, you're going to find it not unhelpful, but less helpful than if you make sure to meet all of those needs first. So does that answer your question, Chris?
I guess it does. Yeah, so it's very variable. So I would suggest that for beta testers that we actually mention what time of the day that we actually do these, how many sessions we actually do as well. Yeah.
Yep. All that would be helpful. Chris, that's really cool that you, have that knowledge on flow and that you're going to be playing around from the inside. I love that. That's really awesome.
Thanks.
And Andrew, and by the way, pitch for Andrew Huberman's podcast, if anybody hasn't heard, really great, like super nerdy neuroscience. So I absolutely love that as well.
All right, and I think we should mention to Matt that we also have a limit on the amount of sessions also, because if we find that, for example, you do a session and you're not improving, then we would actually flag you because there may be some underlying trauma as well, right? So we should also mention that too.
Yeah. So, and it's worth saying today. So 2 things. First of all, if you're doing sessions and you find it's making it worse, not better, what's happening is you're beginning to touch underlying, like Kel said, pain and trauma stored in your nervous system. And then that would be a really big flag for us to say to people. And we plan to have this baked in the app, like, hey, you should probably go maybe to therapy or coaching or something. Because the pattern that's emerging from what the AI is seeing, it will be able to tell and indicate that. And then on a deeper level, right? Like if you are aware of underlying conditions like dissociation or severe trauma, this may be not the best app for you and for some people it may be fine, but for others, you may find it begins to provoke that unaddressed trauma. And, again, it's like, yeah, so you just, but it's your nervous system telling you it wants to heal. So it's not a bad thing, but it feels painful. So, people don't want to be in pain, but the pain is usually an indication of underlying BS. That's a clinical term. It stands for bullshit, underlying clinical bullshit that probably needs to be addressed, unfortunately.
All right.
Hi, I had a question. I think you're trying to wrap up, but you know how Trinities are. In terms of community, I don't know if I missed that. I'm not sure if I missed it because I did step away, and come back. Because this session here was like so good, you know what I mean? Like, so I think everybody here is like super like motivated, and as Matt said, we want to work our BS out, that kind of thing. So we are like and it's because of the community. So I'm wondering, what is the deal with that? Is it that's part of it? You get my question,
Kels, do you want to answer? Or do you want me to answer?
That's a good question. So part of it is definitely part of community building. Like a big part of us for Recess is more than just an app for us. We really want to stay connected. And that's why we talked about the mastermind. We spoke about, just keeping in touch. So we definitely have some things in the works. We want to do like, sessions where we meet up, that we do talk, that we share different things. So yes, Sarah, definitely is part of a big pillar for us is community and community building.
So for anybody who isn't familiar with what a mastermind is, it's when a group of like-minded people come together for a common goal, right? So that the idea, if we were gonna, there you go, focus. Hey, you should check out the Recess app. Yeah, so the mastermind, the goal would be, and we're gonna see exactly what we do, but this was one of my I think it's just a good idea, whether it's maybe once a month or more often, come together, talk about the challenges, not just how we're using Recess, but how we're using Recess to address the challenges or the flow state, group coaching and collaboration, right? But we're also looking at, okay, what social media platform are we going to use in terms of our home base? And then, again, we've got the podcast, and that'll be part of the community generation. We are launching we're going through the beta before our marketing is totally locked